And good morning, the Crafty Dancer here. Today we are going to do a couple of frogs. Now, I really like these little frogs. They're the ones with the little round toes and everything. And what I've done is I've created a big turtle, so I'm doing a full set. So for now, I'm just doing the two frogs. And what we're going to be using is the dyed seashell chips. They're from Hobby Lobby, and they, as you can see here, I got them. It says for $3.29, but however, I caught them on sale for half price, so I got them for less than that. So that I always look for deals when I'm buying my materials to go into my various pieces. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be using the Let's Resin. I am not being sponsored by them or anything like that, but it's what I like to use. So we're going to be going with that. I also have my frogs here. I have my cup to do it. Now, luckily, all I'm going to need is about 2 ounces of the Let's Resin epoxy. Actually, being as I'm doing 2 of them, I'm probably going to do more like 4 ounces. Now, if I were just pouring it in clear, then I would probably only need about 3 ounces total to do the frogs. Now, where did I get the frogs? Well, I bought them from Amazon. Now, what I like to do is get my bag open. I have it set there and ready. I'm going to start off by doing pouring my resin into my cup. I'm going to use my scale to determine just how much. Now, it's very important when you do your cup because the cups actually weigh about 1/2 ounce. So what I do is I always have my scale. I zero it out. So now when I do my resin, I can make sure that I have a correct amount. Now, being as I'm doing 3 ounces, I only need about 1.5 ounces of each, part A and part B. So there's my 1.5, and I'll do this one up to 3. $2.8 and 3 ounces. Now I have my little stir stick. What I'm going to do is give it a good stir, and then after I stir it, I'm going to put it in my debubbler, which essentially is a big vacuum chamber. It sucks out all the little bubbles. Once the bubbles are pulled out, then you can go into starting your pouring. Now, we're going to just set one of these aside because I'm thinking this is probably going to be enough for one. I'm still fairly new at this, so I'm learning as I go. But you want to give it a good stir. So we'll be back after I debubble. Okay, and we're back. We have our resin. Now I went ahead and fixed up a little bit more, but you can see there's still some bubbles in there. Just a few on top. So what I'm going to do is use my little torch while I have it here, and I'm just going to give it a little blast. Now my torch is set on the very lowest setting, and it's due to have some more propane put in it, so it's actually the perfect level right now to get that, just pop those little surface bubbles. Okay, now once I've got that all done, got my resin set up. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break out my little cups. These are perfect for pouring just a little bit of resin into your molds. And of course you need a little stick. Now, because I'm dealing with resin, I am going to put on some gloves just so I can keep it off my hands. Now, luckily this stuff that I use is non-toxic and it doesn't have an odor to it. So that helps a lot because I have to do my pouring on the inside of my house, just on my kitchen counter, because I don't have a room set up with a lot of ventilation. But this stuff is very non-toxic. I've been using it for a while and it seems to work extremely well. So the first thing I'm going to do is pour some of these little chips into my cup. I'm going to get a nice stack of them. I'm going to use my big cup here, and I'm just going to pour my resin right on top. Now, after I do that, I'm going to start mixing it in. I want to get all these little resin chips covered with some resin on them. That really reduces the amount of bubbles that you'll have in your project when you do it this way. Now, of course, after I do that, they're kind of mixed in. I'm going to pour a little bit into the frog itself, just to give it a little bit of a base layer. And now that that's done, I can start layering in my little chips. And once they're going in, I can start moving them around a little bit. And you can see the resin I already poured in is starting to fill up the space, which is exactly what I want to do. Now I'm going to push most of my chips forward because I want a lot of that. You see that little bubble there in the front? I'm going to try to push all of my resin. It's not a bubble so much per se. It's just where the resin or where the chips haven't gone all the way forward yet. So I just keep pushing until I get my chips where I want them. And now they're pretty well in there. I'm going to use a little bit of resin over here in the legs. Just do a little drop in there. And a little drop on the other side. Now I do have my nice big cutting mat. My wife was very generous and she said, here, use this one. It's a little bit better than the silicone mats. I'm going to throw some more chips in. Try and spread them around a little bit. Fill up the legs. A little bit more. Now this is a brand new channel. This is my second video that I'm posting. My first project didn't come out as well as I'd liked it to have. It was a little different and unfortunately just did not turn out quite as good as I wanted it to. But these are generally pretty simple. They're perfect for people that are just starting to use resin because it's pretty straightforward. You just simply put your resin in a little bit and then fill it up with whatever you want. I mean, people have used flowers, they've used butterfly stickers and things like that. So there's all kinds of different little things that you can use to create, different looks. I'm going to throw some more resin on top of that because you want to make sure that you get plenty of resin so it fills up any little gaps that might be in there. And you'll notice as I'm doing this, I'm kind of mushing down, working all that resin down into my little project. Now you'll notice too, my legs are not getting as much. My legs and little arms are not getting as much of the resin chips in there just yet, which is okay because I want them to go up into the legs a little bit and then have my feet be a little more clear. So I'm going to start with this one back here and just kind of work my chips up in there a little bit. Try to get some different colored ones if you can. I got a nice blue one there, so I'm going to throw that one in and push it up in there. And I'm going to try to leave my little feet clear. See, now there's a really good one right there. So I'm just going to drop that one in. Nice pink one with a purple. Try to turn it to where the shiny side is up. And then get a couple little pieces going up toward the foot. There we go. That's that part. Now, just finish this off up here. Just drop those in. Now you want to make sure that you try to get this as flat as possible, because remember, your bottom is your top right now. So the way these things will set is very important. And we'll just drop a few more in here. And don't worry, if you put it in places where it doesn't belong, that resin will pop out. It is all silicone, and you can see I've used that whole cup. Now to finish it off, I will finish pouring my resin. Now, in case you're wondering why I have this other cup, is I've got another little project right behind it I'm going to use. So you're going to kind of get 2 in 1 today. And we just want to fill up the feet. Now you see those little toes? I got a little trick for you for the toes, where we can push the resin up into the toe. I have my little wooden skewers, and I'm just going to work my resin all the way up into the toes. Make sure I've got resin in all my little toes. See, that one there didn't have any, so I'm going to push it up in there. And then once I get it, I'm going to get it all in there. Then I'm going to finish by doming it up. Just enough to where it doesn't run over. But by pushing the resin up into the toes, you'll be assured that you're going to have full coverage and you won't have a missing toe. Because, you know, our little frogs can't have missing toes. Oops, get back down there where you belong. Push that up in there. Now I'm using a wood skewer, but I'm being careful to try to not get it, you know, touch the silicone as much. Because, you know, obviously I am touching it a little bit, but I'm trying not to scrape it. Okay, so now once that's done, I'm going to top it off. Use my little stick here to catch the drips. A little top off. Going up into the feet. And I just want to bring it up to where it just domes over the heel, because after all, your resin does shrink. But I found that if you raise it up just a little bit, then it doesn't shrink. And you can see I've mixed just the proper amount for this frog. And that was 3 ounces. Now, if you're doing a fully clear frog, then naturally you're going to have more. Now, be very careful with this. You can see I've got a few bubbles. So I'm just going to quickly tap it just to kind of get rid of those bubbles. Now, you can also use an alcohol spritzer. Unfortunately, at the moment, I can't seem to find mine. So now we're going to just be very gentle and set that off to the side. And I'm going to bring in my next little project. Now, my next project, I know I'm not there, I'm off camera at the moment, but I'm in the process of getting my mica powders. So my next project is going to be a little Buddha turtle. My wife just loves these little guys, and I kind of messed up one the other day, so I'm going to redo it for her. So what I have here is my mica powders. Let you see that. And then once again, I'm not being sponsored by anyone. I haven't had my channel long enough or built up enough subscribers. Speaking of which, if you're enjoying this, please feel free to subscribe and like. I will be trying to put out quite a few videos. So who knows, you might see something that you can learn from. So there's my mica powders. And for this turtle, she likes the gold. So I'm going to pull out my soft white amber gold. Now this one's really quick and easy. We can set that off to the side. So all I'm going to do is pull out my stick. Gonna wipe it off real quick. So I'm just going to take and dip into my amber gold and drop some down in there. Be a little bit generous, and I'm going to give it a good stirring and mix it in. Now I did debubble this once, but after I get it all stirred in, I'm going to go ahead and debubble it again. Now the reason for double debubbling is because essentially what it does is all this powder doesn't always get mixed in completely. And I think by debubbling it, it helps it to mix a little bit more. Now I could be wrong, but when I've just stirred it in and poured it, I always end up with these little spots of where the powder didn't get completely mixed. But when I debubble it, it seems like I don't have any. Or if I do, it's just very, very little. Now, the work time on this resin, by the way, is about 45 minutes before it starts really getting too thick to where you can't really use it as much. So I'm going to go ahead and get this into my little vacuum chamber, and I'll be back. So now my resin's been debubbled. I'm going to go ahead and knock off any bubbles that might be on the top. There we go. And now all we do is pour it in. So once again, this is my little Buddha turtle. So I'm going to just pour it part of the way in. And by the way, the Buddha turtles take about 3.7 ounces. I always mix a little extra, and then I always have something else that I can pour it in. In this case, I'm going to pour the rest of it into this other frog, and you'll see what I'm going to do with that in a second. So let me start off by just pouring what I can into my turtle. I'm going to fill up the head first and about halfway. Once I get that there, now I'm going to just set my stick in because you've got little areas where bubbles can be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little squeegee, push those bubbles up and out of the way. As you can see, there's some little bubbles popping up there in those arms. And by doing this, you get pretty well good coverage. Now also the shell has a tendency to get a few bubbles. So I'm going to just work those bubbles up, give it a good coating. So now as I fill it up the rest of the way, it should not have little bubbles. Make sure we get all that in there. Pour it up a little bit higher. Oops, almost spilt. There we go. That in. Get a little bit more squeegee. Forget which guy says that, but it's funny. I watch a lot of YouTube, and that's where I get these ideas from. I love pouring your heart out. She is an amazing person to watch. Of course, a lot of these molds come from her. Not this one, but I got my big turtle, and I'll show you that one at the end when I do the demolding. I'll break out a couple of the other ones that I've done, and you can see how they'll match up. All right, so we got that in there. We'll just pour the rest of this up. Fill up all the way to the top. Get all those little bubbles out nice and slow. So the slower you pour it, the more the bubbles don't get a chance to stick, which is what you want. And now we have my second one. Okay, so now for this little froggy, we're going to make sure we get any of the old stuff that was in there out. So this one here, we're going to do a little different. We're going to pour just in the main body and then up here in the legs and a little bit into the arms. And you'll see why. This is kind of something new that I've seen that people have done, and I've been wanting to try it, so I'm going to give it a little try. So just pour a little bit in there. And now I'm going to take a little bit on my stick and try and get it in here on the legs. And I'm dripping, dripping, dripping. I'll clean up where I don't want it at. I try to get the same amount on both sides. And I'm making a mess. I'll just drop some down in there. I just want some to rest into the arm a little bit. And the rest can run right on back down into the bottom. All right, and I got a little left. It's always a good idea to have an extra mold or two around that you can pour whatever excess you have in. And in this case, I got a little snail. So the rest of it, I'm just going to pour in there, and I'm not going to worry about doing anything fancy on it. I'll end up with a little, whoops, making a mess. I'll clean it up. Now, I did scrape this when I was mixing it, so it is well mixed. What I'll do is I'll mix up a little bit more resin just to finish off this snail, about an ounce. I can already tell my resin is starting to thicken up a bit. And I'll show you something too, after I get the little bit more mixed up, how you can take and have a kind of a cool effect when you so I don't mix. I'm going to do clear resin after this, just about an ounce, so half an ounce of each, won't take long at all. There we go, we'll set that there. We'll get me a little towel. I'm just going to try to clean up the sides a little bit. Now, alcohol does wonders for you. I don't have it right at the moment, but I will get it to do the rest of my cleanup. In the meantime, I will see you in a few minutes. Okay, now I have a few baby wipes that I can use. Baby wipes are perfect. These here. I just picked them up at the dollar store. And now what I'll do is I'll use it to clean up my mold a little bit and try to get into some places where I don't really want that much resin to be. Just dip down in there and just try to pull out some of that resin in places that I didn't want it, such as back here. Although this could be a pretty cool effect. So we might just leave it and see what happens. I kind of like those little spots here and there. So we're going to just leave that as is and see what happens with it. In the meantime, I'll wipe down my surface here, a little over here, and we will mix up that last little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quick. There we go. Give it a good stir. And this is just going in the snail, just to finish up that last little bit. And I'm just doing it in my little cup. Now, when this one cures, I'll do another pour into it. So when it's ready for me to do the next pour, I will make sure that I film that so you can see what I'm doing on it. Now, I'm probably not going to debubble this one. I'm not as concerned about the snail. If it has bubbles in it, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Hopefully the bubbles will all rise out. But before I do that, I do want to make sure I get resin down into the little antenna. So I'm going to go ahead and squeegee those. Try to force those little bubbles that might be down in there, get some good resin in that. Now these, when you demold these, you want to make sure that they're fully cured because otherwise you can pull the antenna out. Same thing with the turtle, the Buddha turtle, because that head is kind of hard to get out. So you'll want to make sure that he is very fully resined or cured, that the resin is cured before you try to take him out. All right, so that is well mixed. I'll just give it a little scrape around the sides, scrape my stick, bring that down, give it a little, here's a little good rule of thumb to use. When you're stirring your resin, when you think you've got it mixed enough, go ahead and stir it for about another 30 seconds. That way you get it fully mixed. And now that that's great, now what I like about these little cups is when I'm pouring into a little area, I want to take and be able to, I'll set that down. I'm going to move him off to the side here so I get this one in the main area. I like these little cups because when you're pouring into a tight spot, you can make a little spout. And now we can just pour it in. Bubbles and all. Not really worrying. I'll fill it up a good ways. Stop. There we go. We'll get that little drop. Now I'm going to take my little stick and do a little, bring some of that gold up into the snail and stir it around. It makes a pretty cool little effect. Gives the snail a little more translucent, but still has the gold to it. We'll do a little more. Now you can see a lot of bubbles in there, but you know what? I like the bubbles in the snail. I just think they look kind of cute. So if they stay, they stay. Just keep working this around, make sure it's all the way mixed in, but still very, very translucent. We'll just pour just a tad bit more to get it to dome. And there we have it. I'll throw a little on top of this. Get that domed up. You won't see the clear. And we'll leave the frog alone. And there we have it. So now these 4 little projects are done. You can see I got a little bubble there. Oop, it's gone. Just be careful when you're using a torch because if you get your silicone mold too hot, it can fuse to the resin. So you want to be very, very careful when you're doing this. I just literally just snap it and it's gone. So you want to be really careful when you're doing that. So other than that, I will see you when we're ready to do more on this little guy. See you soon. And we're back. Okay, so this is pretty well starting to get cured, but I'm not going to demold them just yet. I'm going to leave these off to the side. Now, this is the last frog that we hadn't finished. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and get me enough resin in here and pour the next color. So the next color I'm using is mica powders, but it's the silver gray. So it's going to be a silver gray gold frog. And we'll see how that goes. So first things first is I think I'm going to probably need about 3 ounces. So we're going to mix up 4 ounces. I always like to have a little extra. So we'll start filling up our resin. 1.3. And a drop more. And we're at 2. We'll get the other 2. 3 ounces. 3.6. And 4 ounces. Okay. Next, we need to add our mica powders, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the mica powder at the same time that I'm mixing my resin. So we'll get us a couple of generous little scoops. There's 1 and 2. Now it's okay if it's not completely opaque, but it will be enough that it's going to definitely stand out. So we'll move that off to the side, and we'll just start mixing our resin up. And once again, after I get it mixed, I will put it in the vacuum chamber to get it all debubbled as much as possible. Now I like to turn my cup a little over to the side so that I can try to get as much of the powder as possible and get it all mixed in there. As you can see, I was kind of messy with my powder, so it bounced up on me. But luckily, the resin should pick it up. Get it the rest of the way mixed. And of course, when you're mixing it, make sure that you're scraping your sides and going across the bottom. And scrape the side some more, and I turn my cup so that it really gets a good blend. Because you don't want any unmixed resin, because it will not do good. Your project could be messed up from it. So we'll keep getting it good and mixed. There we go. And as you can see, most of my powder has all been pretty well dissolved. But like I said, I'm going to put it in the debubbler and let it get all of that, all the little bubbles out for me. So I will be back shortly. And we're back. So I've got my resin nice and debubbled. It's all ready to go. So now we just pour it in. And of course I pour it onto the stick so that it will keep from getting any more bubbles in it. And we just slowly fill it up. And then the same thing we did earlier, we're going to just take our little stick and work it up into the little hands and the little fingers. And if I need to, I can always go back and use my other little deal. But this seems to be working. Get into all the little toes. And now I'll just, and it's a good thing I decided to make 4 instead of 3.5 because as you can see, it took it all. So I like to say, always make a little extra because you never know, you might need more. And try to scrape it all in there. You got just a little left. All right, and there we have it. Clean up my little bubbles that I dropped. And I see I got a couple little bubbles there, so I'm just going to give it a couple of quick hits with the heat, and they're gone. So I will see you for the demolding. All right, it is time for the reveal. So let's start off first. We'll go with the smallest one, the little snail. So we'll just work on bringing these out. This is the next day, by the way. So they've had plenty of time to cure. So first thing you got to do is start slowly peeling it all back. Now these molds are pretty tough, even though they're kind of small and thin, they do seem to be pretty tough. So we'll loosen the back of the shell first, peel it back. And the good thing is I've given it plenty of time to cure, so I shouldn't have any problem with the antennae of the snail. We'll pop them off. And there we go. We have it out. Now I can see I didn't quite get the bubbles out of these two antennae here. I'll let you see them. You can see that they are definitely a little shorter. Whoop, get it over where? Oh, there it is. Okay. That is right there and there. So I will try to fix that later with some UV resin. We'll see if I can do that. I don't know because it is a gold resin. Now make sure that you, after you pop them out, make sure you put your mold back to its normal position. Okay, next we'll do the turtle, the Buddha turtle. So this one here, you have to slowly roll down, get it to its head, and then this is another reason why you want to make sure that it's totally out. I did this one the other day, and you can see the head was not completely done yet, and it kind of deformed the neck pretty bad and the face itself. So I'll show you the difference between the two of them here in a second. Pop the head out, set it down. We'll turn our mold back to normal, set it there, and now you can kind of see the differences between the heads. So like I said, it's very important. And of course, there's the face. Line them up correctly so you can see them. So be careful, make sure that your head is fully cured so that it doesn't misshape. So that's the little golden Buddha turtle. All right, next we'll do this little guy here, our first frog. We'll peel it out. You got to pop this part here out and then pop that one. And you can see it comes out. Now with it being fully cured, luckily the little toes will all be on there. But I always push from underneath because that will help to release those toes. And then you pull it out, pull that out, and there you have it. So here, well, got a little bubble there. Actually, that was from the gold that I poured in, and there you have him, a little gold and silver frog. Now I will put eyes in him later, I'll show that in a future video, but I think that's pretty cool. And I actually like the little spots around him where I kind of splashed my resin as I poured the gold in. I left it on there, and you can see it came out pretty cool looking. So I like that one. And now for the shell turtle. So we'll pop that out. Do the same thing again that we did on the other one. We got to loosen this up. Get the little toes out. Pull it loose. Work it down. Pop these toes out. These. Now, this part here is sometimes gets to be a little finicky. There we go. All right, and reveal. There he is. I think these are my best sellers. I do sell some of my work, and for some reason, everybody really likes these colored shells. So they come in, they just look really cool. All the various colors and everything. So that is that. So put that down. And now, some people have asked me, well, can you put these outside? Because, I have a koi pond. Yes, you can, especially this style, because it's mica powder, so it won't yellow. But even though this is UV resistant, doesn't mean that it won't yellow over time. So you do have to take that into consideration. So if you're pouring clear, clear will yellow over time, even with the UV resistant, because it's just resistant. It's not UV, fight against UV completely. So I do want to point that out. Now, the mica powders, they have a tendency to resist the UV a little bit more. So it might change a little bit, but not as much as just a clear. So this is considered clear. There's no mica powder in it. It is just the shells. So, and definitely the feet would change. So being outside, you want to be kind of where it doesn't get as much sun. But these can sit out there, no problem. So there you have it. That is my little critters and the Buddhist turtle. My wife really likes these. And we'll just continue on, and I will see you next time. Now, please don't forget, if you liked my video, it helps. Plus, if you subscribe, there's lots more up and coming, and I promise you they will only get better. Thank you for watching.